The desert world of Vareen was harsh and silent under its twin suns. Heat shimmered across endless dunes of red dust, and the air smelled of metal and ash. From the horizon came the faint sound of engines, a human transport craft battered by wind and sand. Inside, a lone human soldier named Ethan Cole checked his pulse rifle one last time. He wasn't supposed to be here. Humans were forbidden from stepping onto Vareen without permission from the Aurelian Empire, a proud alien race known for their strength, beauty, and arrogance. But Ethan wasn't here on a mission. He was here to protect someone. Her name was Lyra, an Aurelian noblewoman, young, fierce, and known across the stars for her defiance. She stood outside the crashed shuttle now, her armor gleaming like silver fire, her green skin shining beneath the harsh sunlight. The wind tugged at her long white hair, but her eyes stayed fixed on Ethan as he approached. "You shouldn't have come," she said coldly. "Humans die easily on Vareen." Ethan wiped sweat from his brow and smiled faintly. "Then I'll try not to die." Her lips twitched, almost a smile, but she quickly turned away. "Your bravery is useless here. My enemies are not merciful." In the distance, thunder echoed, not from the sky, but from engines. Dozens of dark ships appeared over the dunes, moving fast. Lyra's expression hardened. "They've found us." Ethan raised his rifle. "Then we fight." Lyra turned to him sharply, her eyes flashing. "Fight? You can't fight them. You're human. You're fragile." Ethan ignored her words, stepping forward to shield her. "Then you better hope I'm good at being fragile." Before Lyra could reply, the first wave of Aurelian soldiers landed. They were massive, taller than humans, with thick armor and glowing blue weapons. They spread out in a half-circle, cutting off escape routes. Ethan and Lyra were trapped. The alien commander stepped forward. His armor was black and marked with the sigil of House Tharn, the same house that had tried to overthrow Lyra's family. His voice was deep and cruel. "Princess Lyra," he said, "surrender peacefully, and I may let your human pet live." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm nobody's pet." The commander laughed, a cold metallic sound. "Then you'll die like an animal." He raised his weapon, but Ethan moved first. His rifle cracked, and a bright flash tore through the air. The blast hit the commander square in the chest, sending him crashing backward. Chaos erupted instantly. Blue bolts of plasma filled the air as Aurelian soldiers charged. Ethan fired again and again, rolling to cover behind a broken transport wing. Lyra stood frozen for a moment, watching the human fight with a kind of stunned disbelief. His movements were fast, precise, desperate, but effective. He was outnumbered, but he didn't stop. When a plasma bolt came for her, Ethan tackled her to ground, shielding her with his body. The blast hit his shoulder, burning through his armor. He cried out, but didn't let go. "Are you insane?" Lyra shouted, tried to push him off. "You'll die." "Not yet." Ethan growled through clenched teeth. He turned and shot another Aurelian, the bolt striking true. The others hesitated for just a second, and that second was all Lyra needed. She lifted her hand, her eyes glowing with alien energy, and unleashed a shockwave that threw the attackers back like rag dolls. The ground shook. Dust and fire filled the air. When the smoke cleared, only silence remained. The ships had retreated, leaving bodies behind. Ethan lay on the ground, breathing heavily, his armor smoking. Lyra knelt beside him, her expression unreadable. "You saved me," she said quietly. He looked up, smirking weakly. "Told you I wasn't that weak." Lyra stared at him for a long time. She had seen humans before, merchants, servants, workers, but never one like him. His courage was reckless, his body fragile, but there was something in his eyes, something she couldn't name. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why risk your life for me?" Ethan tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "Because that's what humans do," he said simply. "We protect people who can't protect themselves." Her eyes darkened. "I can protect myself." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe I'm just here to remind you that even the strong need help sometimes." For the first time, Lyra had no reply. She stood up, turning her face away as if hiding something. The wind howled again across the dunes, carrying the scent of smoke and victory. As Ethan struggled to his feet, Lyra finally said, "You shouldn't have come here, human. You've made enemies today." "Yeah," Ethan said, checking his rifle, "but I've made a friend too, right?" Lyra looked at him, really looked at him, and for the briefest moment, her eyes softened. "We'll see." In the distance, more ships appeared on the horizon. Bigger, faster, deadlier. Ethan raised his rifle again, grinning despite the pain. "Round 2. Lyra took her weapon in hand, her voice calm and low. "Stay close, human. You may not be as weak as I thought." As they stood side by side, the desert sun blazing behind them, something changed between them. Something neither of them could yet understand. The war for survival had just begun. The heat of Vereen grew worse as the day passed. The twin suns blazed high above, and the dunes stretched endlessly, glowing like molten gold. Ethan and Lyra moved cautiously through the wasteland, their shadows long and sharp against the sand. Behind them, smoke still rose from the wreck of Lyra's shuttle. Ethan limped slightly, his shoulder burned from the earlier blast. He tried not to show it, but Lyra noticed. Her bright green eyes narrowed as she walked beside him. "You're injured," she said. "I've had worse," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "That's not an answer," she said sharply. "Your wound needs treatment. Human bodies are weak. You'll die before sunset." He laughed quietly. "You've been calling me weak since we met." "Because you are," Lyra said, her tone cool. "You bleed too easily. Your bones are fragile. Even your weapons are primitive." Ethan glanced at her, amused. "And yet, I saved your life." That made her pause. The alien princess turned away, her white hair catching the sunlight. She didn't reply, but her silence spoke more than words. They climbed over a rocky ridge and stopped to rest beneath a crumbling stone arch. The air shimmered with heat. Ethan dropped his pack and sat on the sand, breathing hard. Lyra stood watch, scanning the horizon with her keen eyes. "What now?" he asked after a while. "Any plan?" "Yes," she said simply. "We reached the Temple of Zura before nightfall." "Temple of what?" "It's an ancient sanctuary. My ancestors built it before the wars. There's a communication beacon there. If it still works, we can send a signal for help." Ethan nodded. "Sounds good. How far?" 30 miles, she said. He sighed. "Of course it is." Lyra turned to him with a raised brow. "You can't walk 30 miles?" "I can," Ethan said, getting to his feet, "but I'm going to complain the whole way." That made her laugh softly, a small, quick sound that surprised even her. For a moment, her royal mask dropped, and Ethan saw the person behind the armor. She wasn't just a proud alien warrior. She was young, uncertain, and maybe even lonely. But before he could say anything, a faint hum filled the air. Lyra froze. Her eyes went sharp. "Down," she hissed. They both dropped behind the rocks as a patrol drone buzzed overhead, sleek, silver, and deadly. It hovered, scanning the area with blue light. Ethan held his breath, gripping his rifle tightly. The drone drifted closer, its sensors sweeping across the sand. Lyra whispered, "If it spots us, they'll send more." Ethan nodded. "Leave it to me." Before she could stop him, he crawled out from behind the rock, keeping low. He picked up a handful of sand, waited for the drone to turn slightly, and then threw it into the air. The drone sensors flickered, momentary confusion. That was all Ethan needed. He aimed carefully, fired once, and the drone exploded in a burst of smoke and sparks. Lyra stared at him, astonished. "You destroyed an Aurelian scout drone with one shot." Ethan grinned. "Lucky shot." She shook her head slowly. "No, that was skill." He shrugged. "Guess I'm not that weak after all." Lyra didn't answer, but her expression softened. She helped him up, and they continued their journey through the desert. The wind picked up, blowing fine sand that stung their faces. Hours passed. The light began to fade, turning gold to deep red. As night approached, the temperature dropped sharply. The desert that had burned all day now felt cold and empty. Ethan's steps grew heavier. His wound throbbed. Rest, Lyra said, stopping near a cluster of rocks. He shook his head. We can't stop. You said your enemies. They'll find us faster if you collapse, she said firmly. He sat down reluctantly. Lyra knelt beside him, pulling a small metallic capsule from her belt. She pressed it to his shoulder, and a faint blue light spread across the burn. The pain faded instantly. Ethan exhaled in relief. Nanogel, she explained. It will heal the tissue. Thanks, he said softly. You didn't have to. Lyra looked at him, her face calm but her voice quiet. You saved me earlier. I'm only returning the favor. The stars came out one by one, filling the sky with light. The two sat in silence for a while, the desert wind whispering around them. Far off, something howled, a strange, alien sound that echoed through the dunes. Ethan broke the silence. So why are they after you? Lyra hesitated, then said, Because I refused to obey. The Tharn family, they want to control the Empire through me. I was supposed to marry their heir. When I refused, they called me a traitor. Ethan frowned. You ran? I escaped, she said, her tone proud. And I won't go back. He studied her face. Beneath her strength, he saw fear she didn't want to show. You're braver than you think, he said quietly. She looked at him with surprise. You think bravery is refusing orders? I think bravery is standing up when everyone else bows down, Ethan said. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Two different beings from two different worlds, bound by survival and something they didn't yet understand. Then, suddenly, a flash of light streaked across the horizon. Lyra stood instantly, eyes wide. No, they found us. Ethan jumped up, grabbing his rifle. Drones. Worse, she said, pointing toward the distance. From the darkness, massive shapes appeared. Hovercrafts, dozens of them, gliding low over the sand. Their lights cut through the night like blue fire. Ethan tightened his grip on his weapon. Guess the break's over. Lyra drew her blade, the edge glowing faintly. Stay close, human. If we die tonight, we die fighting. Ethan smiled grimly. That's the only way I know. The engines roared louder as the enemy ships descended. The desert trembled beneath them. Ethan and Lyra stood side by side, silhouetted against the rising storm. The war for survival had found them again, and this time there was no place left to run. The desert wind screamed as the hovercrafts drew closer. Blue lights cut through the darkness, casting long shadows over the dunes. Ethan could feel the ground vibrating beneath his boots. The air smelled of dust and fuel. Lyra's white hair whipped around her face as she gripped her glowing blade. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were fierce. They'll surround us. The Tharn soldiers never miss their prey. Ethan checked his rifle, sliding a new power cell into place. Then we make sure they regret finding us. Lyra turned to him sharply. You plan to fight them? There are dozens. Yeah, Ethan said, steady and quiet. And only one of me. They won't expect that. She blinked, confused. You're insane. Maybe, he said, smiling. But sometimes crazy works. The first hovercraft swooped in low, sand blasting in every direction. Armed soldiers in black armor leapt out, their helmets reflecting the twin moons. Lyra recognized their insignia immediately, the crest of the Tharn Dominion. One of the soldiers raised a weapon and shouted in their alien tongue. Lyra didn't need a translation. They want me alive, she muttered. Good, Ethan said, raising his rifle. Makes them easier targets. The night exploded into chaos. Ethan fired first, his shots cutting to the soldier's armor with precise, practiced aim. He moved fast, rolling, ducking, firing, like a man who fought too many battles and learned to survive every single one. Lyra watched in shock. His movements weren't reckless. They were strategic, controlled, deadly. For someone she'd called weak, he fought like a storm. Lyra joined him, her blade slicing through the air. It hummed with energy, leaving trails of light as it cut down soldiers one after another. Together, they moved like one, her speed and agility paired with raw accuracy. A soldier tried to flank them. Ethan saw the glint of metal and turned instantly, firing a blast that dropped the attacker mid-step. "Behind you," Lyra shouted. Ethan spun just as another soldier lunged, but before he could fire, Lyra leapt forward, her blade slashing across the enemy's chest plate. Sparks flew. The soldier fell. Their eyes met for a second, adrenaline, fear, and understanding passing between them. Then more hovercrafts appeared on the ridge. Ethan's rifle overheated. He dropped it, grabbed a fallen alien blaster, and dove behind a dune. "We're outnumbered," he called out. Lyra ducked beside him, breathing hard. "We can't win this fight." "Maybe not," he said, reloading, "but we can make them pay for every inch." Lyra hesitated. The moonlight gleamed on her blade. "You're bleeding again," she said quietly. "Not the first time," he said, firing again without looking. She stared at him, really stared. This human, wounded and exhausted, refused to back down. He wasn't fighting to impress her. He was fighting because he wouldn't abandon anyone, even her, an alien princess from another world. For the first time, Lyra felt something strange. Guilt and admiration. Then, the largest hovercraft descended. A new figure stepped out, tall, broad, and wrapped in black armor lined with gold. His helmet retracted, revealing a pale, scarred face with glowing red eyes. "Lyra," he called, his voice echoing through the desert. "You've run far enough." Lyra's body stiffened. "Commander Vrax." Ethan frowned. "You know him?" "He was my father's enforcer," she said bitterly. "Now he served the Tharns." Vrax smiled coldly. "Come with me, princess. Don't make me destroy your new pet." His gaze shifted toward Ethan. Ethan stepped forward, shoulders squared. "She's not going anywhere with you." Vrax's expression darkened. "You think you can stop me, human?" Ethan smirked. "I don't think. I know." Before Vrax could reply, Ethan fired, not at the commander, but at the hovercraft behind him. The shot hit the fuel line, and the craft exploded in a massive fireball. The blast threw sand and soldiers into the air. Lyra ducked as flames lit up the night. When the dust cleared, Vrax was still standing, burned but alive. His armor glowed red-hot. "You just sealed your fate," he growled. Ethan winced, his arm bleeding from shrapnel. "I've heard that before." Lyra jumped forward, blocking Vrax's swing with her blade. The impact sent sparks flying. "Run!" she yelled. Ethan hesitated. "Not without you." She pushed him back. "Go. You can't protect me if you're dead." But Ethan didn't run. He grabbed a fallen weapon, a glowing plasma spear, and charged. The human and the alien commander clashed in a storm of fire and light. Ethan fought with pure instinct, each strike powered by grit, not strength. Vrax roared, smashing the ground with enough force to send Ethan sprawling. The spear flew from his hand. Lyra screamed his name, and in that instant, something inside her snapped. She unleashed a burst of energy from her blade, a brilliant wave that tore through the sand like lightning. Vrax staggered back, his armor cracking. Lyra dropped to her knees, gasping. The attack had drained her. Ethan forced himself up, limping toward her. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "That was the last of my power." Vrax stood again, growling low. "You're both finished." Ethan raised his blaster out of ammo, but didn't lower it. "Maybe, but I don't die easy." Before Vrax could strike, a distant roar echoed to the desert. Engines. Lyra's eyes widened. "Those aren't Tharn ships." A bright flare streaked across the sky, followed by the insignia of the Galactic Peace Corps, the same force Ethan had once served. Reinforcements. Vrax snarled, realizing the fight was lost. He stepped back into the smoke. "This isn't over, human," he hissed before vanishing into the shadows. Ethan dropped to his knees, finally letting out a breath. Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You could have escaped," she said softly. "Why did you stay?" He smiled faintly. "Because you're under my protection, and I don't break promises." Lyra stared at him for a long moment, then looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe I was wrong about humans." Above them, the rescue ships descended, lighting the desert in white and gold. The long night was finally over. The desert sun rose over the horizon, painting the dunes in gold. The battle was over. Smoke rose from the wrecked hovercrafts, and the air still smelled of metal and ash. Ethan sat on a small rock, his arm wrapped in bandages. Lyra stood nearby, watching the Galactic Peace Corps ships land. Their silver hulls gleamed in the morning light, engines humming softly. A tall officer stepped out, wearing the blue uniform of the Corps. His nameplate read Commander Holt. He walked straight to Ethan and saluted. "Sergeant Ethan Cross," he said, his tone sharp but respectful. "You've caused quite a stir. We receive your distress beacon." Ethan returned the salute, though his hand trembled slightly. "Just doing my job, sir. This is Lyra. She's the one the Tharns were hunting." Commander Holt's gaze shifted to her. His expression changed, a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "An alien royal from the Valyrian Empire, correct?" Lyra nodded slowly, her eyes cautious. "Yes, but my people are gone. The Tharns destroyed my home." Holt sighed. "We'll make sure you're safe now." But something in his voice didn't sound right to Ethan. Too calm, too rehearsed. 2 medics approached, asking Ethan to lie down for scans, but he waved them off. "I'm fine. Just need rest." Lyra stayed close to him as they were guided onto the ship. The ramp closed behind them with a hiss, sealing them inside. The hum of the engines filled the silence. For a while, everything seemed normal, peaceful, even. Ethan leaned back, finally letting his body relax. Lyra sat beside him, staring out the window. "You humans," she said quietly. "You fight without fear." He gave a tired smile. "That's not true. We just don't let fear win." She looked at him then, really looked. The sunlight caught the edge of her silver eyes. "Maybe that's what makes you different." Before Ethan could reply, the door to the cockpit opened and Holt walked in. "We're changing course," he announced. Ethan frowned. "Changing course? Why?" "Headquarters is in the opposite direction." Holt didn't answer right away. He looked at Lyra. "Our orders have changed. The Galactic Council wants her delivered directly to them." Lyra tensed. "The Council?" Ethan stood. "That wasn't part of the mission. She's under my protection." Holt's eyes hardened. "Not anymore, Sergeant. This is bigger than you. She's classified as a strategic asset." Ethan took a slow breath. "A what?" Holt's jaw tightened. "Her species carries genetic energy we can't replicate. If we study it, we could advance human technology by centuries." Lyra stepped back, her voice trembling. "You can't be serious. You want to experiment on me." Holt's soldiers moved closer, rifles ready. She retreated well. "But this is non-negotiable." Ethan's heart pounded. His mind raced. He'd fought for the Corps for years, followed every order, but this felt wrong. "Holt," Ethan said, trying to stay calm. "She's not an object. She's a person." The commander's eyes were cold. "And you're a soldier. Remember your place." Ethan's hand twitched toward his sidearm. "Not if my orders cross the line." One of the soldiers stepped forward. "Sir, he's armed." Holt raised a hand. "Stand down, Sergeant. Don't make this harder." Lyra's voice shook as she whispered, "Ethan, please." He looked at her, then at Holt, and made his choice. In a flash, Ethan drew his blaster and fired at the lights above, plunging the room into red emergency glow. Alarms blared. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. They sprinted down the narrow corridor as soldiers shouted behind them. The ship rocked as someone fired a stun blast, missing by inches. Ethan pushed open a maintenance hatch, shoving Lyra inside. "This way." They crawled through the narrow tunnel, sparks flickering around them. Lyra's breathing was quick, panicked. "They'll kill you for this," she whispered. Ethan grinned despite the chaos. "Yeah, probably." They dropped down into the cargo bay. Through a small window, Ethan saw open sky and clouds. "We're still in atmosphere," he muttered. "If we jump now, maybe—" Lyra grabbed his arm. "You're insane." "Worked last time," he said. The door burst open. Holt stood there, gun raised. "Enough, Cross. You're risking everything for a creature." Ethan didn't flinch. "No." For someone who deserves better. He hit the emergency release button. The cargo ramp opened, wind roaring in. Holt fired, the blast grazing Ethan's shoulder, but Ethan grabbed Lyra and leapt. They plunged through the air, the sky a blur of blue and white. Lyra screamed, clinging to him. Ethan hit a button on his belt, deploying a small grav chute. The fall slowed just enough before they crashed into a forest canopy below. Leaves exploded around them. They hit the ground hard, rolling through the dirt. Ethan groaned, half laughing, half in pain. Still alive? Lyra crawled to him, her eyes wide. You jumped out of a ship for me. He grinned weakly. I told you I don't break promises. She looked at him for a long moment, something soft flickering in her eyes. You're not weak, Ethan. You never were. He laughed quietly, even as his vision started to fade. Glad you finally noticed. Lyra pressed a glowing hand against his wound, channeling what little energy she had left. Stay with me, she whispered. You can't die now. The sound of distant engines echoed again, Holt's ship circling back. Ethan forced his eyes open. We need to move. He won't give up. Lyra nodded, helping him to his feet. Together, they stumbled deeper into the forest as sunlight broke through the leaves. Behind them, the Peace Corps ship searched the skies, hunting them like fugitives. But for the first time, Lyra wasn't afraid. She believed in him. The forest was alive with strange sounds. Clicking insects, glowing plants, and distant animal cries that echoed through the trees. Ethan stumbled through the underbrush, every step heavy. Blood still seeped from the wound on his shoulder, but he kept moving. Lyra supported him, her silver eyes darting around. We can't stop here, she said softly. They'll find us. Ethan winced, leaning on her for balance. We'll find a clearing soon. Then I'll... He stopped mid-sentence as a soft beep-beep echoed from his wrist communicator. His tracker was still active. Damn it, he muttered, tearing it off and smashing against a rock. Lyra watched, concern written across her face. They'll come, won't they? Ethan nodded. Yeah, they always do. They moved deeper into the forest until the trees grew so thick that sunlight barely touched the ground. Strange flowers glowed faintly blue, lighting the path. Lyra finally stopped beside a large, hollow tree. We can hide here, she whispered. Ethan leaned back against the trunk, breathing hard. His vision blurred for a moment. Thanks, he murmured. You're stronger than you look. Lyra gave a faint smile. And you're weaker than you think. He chuckled softly. Fair trade. For a while, silence filled the air, just the chirping of alien insects and the wind rustling through glowing leaves. Lyra's hand brushes wound, and her fingers glowed faintly as she tried to heal it again. Ethan hissed. Still hurts. It's not meant for humans, she admitted. My energy can't fully fix your body, but it will help you live. He nodded. That's good enough for me. She looked at him, her expression softening. Why do you keep risking yourself for me? You don't even know me. Ethan met her eyes. Maybe I don't need to. You needed help, that's enough. Lyra lowered her gaze, touched. Where I come from, people like you don't exist anymore. Before Ethan could answer, a snap of a twig made them both freeze. Ethan drew his blaster quietly, motioning for silence. The forest around them was still, too still. Then, a figure stepped out from the shadows. A human. He was tall, wearing dark armor, and held a pulse rifle. His face was covered in dirt and scars. You two picked a bad place to hide, he said coolly. Ethan aimed his weapon. Who are you? The man smirked. Name's Ral. Used to be Peace Corps like you. Then I learned the truth about your new friends. He nodded at Lyra. Lyra stiffened. You're working with the Tharns? Ral shrugged. Work with whoever pays better. And right now, the Tharns pay very well for your head. Ethan tightened his grip. You're not taking her. Ral chuckled darkly. Still playing hero, huh, Cross? You think you can protect her from everyone? From an entire galaxy? Ethan's eyes narrowed. I don't need to protect her from everyone, just from you. In a flash, Ralph fired. Ethan rolled aside, the blast scorching the tree behind him. Lyra screamed as energy bolts lit up the darkness. Ethan fired back, hitting Raoul's shoulder, but the man barely flinched. "Still got fight in you," Raoul growled, "but you're running out of luck." He raised his rifle again, but Lyra stepped forward, hands glowing with a blue aura. The air around her pulsed. Her voice trembled. "Stay back." Raoul hesitated. What is that?" Her energy flared, bending the air, creating waves of heat and light. "You hurt him," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. "You'll regret it." A burst of blue energy shot from her palms, hitting Raoul square in the chest. He flew back, crashing into the undergrowth. The light faded, and Lyra fell to her knees, gasping. Ethan rushed to her. "Hey, easy. You're okay." Her breathing was shallow. "I can't control it for long. It drains me." Ethan looked toward Raoul's motionless body. "You did fine." But then a low groan came from the bushes. Raoul pushed himself up, blood on his lips. "She's powerful," he said with a grim smile. "Now I really understand why they want her." He pressed a button on his wrist. A faint beacon light blinked red. Ethan cursed. "He's calling reinforcements." Lyra tried to stand, but her legs shook. "We have to move." Ethan grabbed her hand and helped her up. "This way." They ran through the forest again, branches whipping against their faces. Behind them, Raoul's voice echoed faintly through the trees. "You can't run forever. Cross. They'll find you, both of you." As they broke through the trees, the ground dropped into a deep ravine. Below, water shimmered faintly in the fading light. Ethan looked down, then at Lyra. "Ready?" She smiled weakly. "You always jump first." "Guess that's my thing." They leapt, plunging into the river below. The cold water swallowed them whole. When they surfaced again, the forest above was quiet. No more shouts. No more gunfire. Only silence. Ethan pulled himself to the shore, coughing. Lyra crawled beside him, her silver hair clinging to her face. He lay back on the grass, laughing softly. "You okay?" She nodded faintly. "Yes, because of you." He turned his head toward her. "We'll rest here for a bit. Then we find a way off this planet." Lyra looked at the sky through the trees, the twin moons rising. "Ethan," she whispered, "when this is over, I'll tell you the real reason they're hunting me." He glanced at her, his heart heavy. "You don't have to." "Yes," she said firmly. "You deserve to know." The river carried them miles away from the place they jumped. By dawn, the water had calmed, and the forest opened into wide green plains. Birds with crystal wings circled the sky, their songs echoing softly. Ethan and Lyra dragged themselves onto the shore, soaked, cold, and exhausted. Ethan ripped a piece of cloth from his jacket and tied it around his wounded arm. "That's the last of it," he muttered. "No medkits left." Lyra knelt beside him, her hands trembling slightly. "You shouldn't have jumped with me. You could have died." He gave a weak smile. "I wasn't going to leave you behind." She looked away, her eyes glistening. "You really are different from the others." For a long while, they sat in silence, the morning sun casting golden light across the plains. Ethan leaned back against a rock, closing his eyes. "So," he said quietly, "you said you'd tell me the truth." Lyra hesitated. Her hands tightened around the edge of her cloak. "You're not going to like it. Try me." She took a deep breath. "I wasn't just running from the thorns, Ethan. I was made by them." Ethan's eyes snapped open. "Made?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Not born. Created. I'm not a normal member of my species. I'm part of their experiment, an attempt to merge human DNA with alien energy." Ethan blinked. "Human DNA? But why?" "Because they wanted to create the perfect being," she said softly. "A hybrid that could survive anywhere, a soldier with human instincts and alien power. But it didn't work. The others, they didn't survive. Only I did." Ethan stared at her, speechless. The wind rustled the grass between them. "So when you said they were hunting you, they want me back," she whispered, "to finish what they started. They think I'm the key to a new kind of weapon, a living weapon." Ethan's jaw tightened. And you think I'd turn you in for that? She shook her head quickly. No, but you don't understand. If they catch me, they'll use my energy to destroy entire colonies. And they'll use your people to help them. Ethan's heart pounded. You're saying humans are involved? Lyra nodded. The Peace Corps, the ones who were supposed to protect me, they were part of the project too. Some of your leaders knew about it. They wanted to see if humans could handle alien power. Ethan stood up, fists clenched. That's insane. It's true, Lyra said quietly. And that's why they want you dead, Ethan. You saw too much. You helped me escape. They can't risk you talking. He turned away, running a hand through his wet hair. So all this time, I was fighting the wrong people. Lyra rose slowly, her expression full of pain. I didn't mean for you to get caught in this. Ethan turned back to her. Too late for that now. She walked closer, her voice soft. There's something else. Ethan frowned. What? Lyra's eyes glowed faintly blue. The Tharns didn't just mix human DNA randomly. They used someone specific, a soldier who went missing years ago. His genetic data was recovered from a crash site near the Outer Rim. Ethan stared at her. What are you saying? She hesitated, then whispered. Ethan, they used your DNA. The world seemed to stop. The wind stilled. The birds went silent. Ethan felt his chest tighten. That's not possible. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes full of sorrow. It is. You're my origin. You're the reason I exist. Ethan staggered back a step, shaking his head. No, that can't be right. I want you to know, she said, because I thought you'd hate me. But the connection between us, the reason I feel your pain, the reason my powers respond to your presence, it's because we're linked. Ethan sat down heavily, staring at the ground. So you're part of me? In a way, she said. Half of me is you. He rubbed his forehead, trying to process it all. That's why they want us both gone. If they can't have you, they'll destroy the source, me. Lyra nodded sadly. Yes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of distant thunder rolled across the plains. Then Ethan looked up, his expression hardening. Then we stopped running. Lyra blinked. What? He stood, his voice steady. If they want us both, fine. But we're going to make sure they never get the chance. We'll take the fight to them. Lyra shook her head. That's suicide, Ethan. You can't face them alone. He smiled faintly. Who said I'm alone? She stared at him for a moment, then slowly smiled back. You're crazy. Probably. He looked toward the horizon. But maybe it's time someone made them afraid for once. Lyra took his hand, her fingers trembling but firm. Then we fight together. He nodded. Together. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain. The first drops fell, glimmering like glass as they hit the grass. Somewhere in the distance, a ship's engines roared, getting closer. Ethan looked up at the darkening sky. Looks like we're out of time. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. Then let's end this. The storm had arrived. Thunder cracked across the plains as Ethan and Lyra stood shoulder to shoulder, staring at the dark shape descending through the clouds. A massive dropship, black, sharp-edged, and humming with alien energy, landed in the distance. Soldiers poured out, armored in shining metal, their weapons glowing blue. They found us, Lyra whispered. Ethan tightened his grip on the plasma rifle he'd taken from the last patrol. Then it's time to show them what we're made of. Lightning split the sky. The rain poured down hard, soaking them both. The grass swayed wildly in the wind. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter than before, electric blue, pulsing with energy that seemed alive. Ethan, she said softly, you don't have to do this. He looked at her, rain dripping from his hair. You said I'm part of you, right? She nodded. Then you're part of me too. We fight together. Lyra smiled faintly. You humans never learn when to give up. Guess that's what makes us dangerous. The soldiers spread out, surrounding them in a half circle. A tall figure stepped forward. Commander Ress, the Tharn who had led the experiments. His eyes were like molten gold, his voice cold and deep. Return the girl human, Ress ordered. She belongs to us. Ethan raised his rifle. She's not property. Ress smirked. You don't even understand what she is. She's not alive in the way you think. She's a weapon, built from your mistakes. Lyra stepped forward, defiant. No, I was built from your greed. Ress's smile faded. Then you'll die with him. The soldiers aimed their weapons. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. Rain hung in the air like crystal shards. Then chaos. Blinding light burst from Lyra's hands, sending shock waves through the field. The ground cracked. Soldiers flew back like leaves in a storm. Ethan dropped to one knee, shielding his face from the explosion. When the light faded, smoke and fire filled the air. Half the enemy squad was down, but more were coming. Ethan fired his rifle, hitting two soldiers in quick bursts. His arm burned from the recoil, but he didn't stop. He moved with sharp, precise motions, covering Lyra's flank. Keep going, he shouted. Lyra lifted both arms, blue energy wrapping around her like a storm. The air vibrated as her power grew, brighter, stronger, almost uncontrollable. Ress advanced, unharmed by the blast. You can't win, child. You were never meant to last this long. I wasn't meant to serve you either. Lyra snapped. Ress raised his hand, energy crackling between his fingers. A beam of dark light shot toward her, but Ethan jumped in front, taking the hit. The blast threw him backward. He hit the ground hard, rolling through mud and smoke. Ethan! Lyra screamed, running to him. She knelt beside him, her hands shaking. Stay with me? He coughed, blood mixing with rain. Guess I still got your back. Tears filled her eyes. You're hurt because of me. Worth it, he said weakly. You're worth it. Behind them, Ress approached, smiling cruelly. Pathetic. You humans always think sacrifice means victory. It only means failure. Lyra stood slowly, her expression changing. The grief on her face turned into fury. No, it means love. Something you'll never understand. Her energy flared again, brighter than ever before. Her body began to shimmer, her outline breaking apart into light. Ethan's eyes widened. Lyra, what are you doing? She looked down at him, smiling through her tears. You gave me life, Ethan. Now I'll use it to end this. No! He tried to grab her hand, but it was already turning to light. Lyra stepped forward, facing Ress one last time. Goodbye, Commander. She raised her hands and released everything. The sky exploded with white fire. The sound was deafening. The shock wave rippled for miles, flattening the planes and shattering the dropship into burning fragments. The soldiers were vaporized instantly. Ress let out a scream that was swallowed by the light, and then there was nothing but silence. When the light faded, the field was calm again. Rain fell gently, washing away the smoke. Ethan lay on the ground, barely breathing. The world was quiet except for the soft patter of rain. He opened his eyes weakly and saw a faint glow in the air. A small orb of blue light floated above him. It pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. Lyra, he whispered. The light drifted closer, hovering just above his hand. It shimmered once, then slowly entered his chest, fading into him. He gasped and felt warmth spread through his body. His wounds began to close. His strength returned. Lyra's voice echoed in his mind, soft and gentle. I'm not gone, Ethan. I'm part of you now. Always. Tears mixed with the rain on his face. You kept your promise, he whispered. He stood slowly, looking out across the plains. The dropship was gone. The storm was breaking. The clouds parted and sunlight poured through, bright and warm. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the light on his skin. You were wrong, Lyra, he said softly, smiling. I wasn't strong enough to protect you. You were strong enough to protect us all. He started walking toward the horizon, each step steady, his heart calm. In the sky above, a faint glimmer of blue light followed him, watching, guiding. And somewhere beyond the clouds and stars, a voice whispered once more, proud, peaceful, and full of love. You were never too weak, human.